on you. And the song goes, if you can't dance too. And this is really, shame is an awful emotion to bear. And sometimes we shame ourselves, and sometimes we allow other people to shame us. But really, what we want to do is think about the dance and all get in to the move, because this shaming is just really quite an awful proposition, and nobody wants to be shamed, nor should you shame anybody else. I'm Darcy from Sticky Bee, and it's the place to be, and I'm going to talk to you about branding and how we need to build our stories without the shame. So we think, shame, 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 shame on you. And it's a feeling that we get, and we all get it when we think, quite frankly, that we've missed the normal train. And frankly, I don't think there's anybody who can ride that normal train completely free of being some kind of weird at one point or another. And it is about kind of that sense of being weird or having that odd feeling and not fitting in. When frankly, I think what we all are is perfectly imperfect. And if we take a look at what makes us imperfect and actually craft our stories around that imperfection, we're going to have far more connection with our audience, because those are the stories that really make sense. We've been led to believe for the longest time, and the success, or the folks that talk about success, say that success is all in the suit. It's all in the watch you wear. It's in the car you drive, and frankly, it's in the air about you. This guy is so cool that, frankly, let me see, which way do I want to go here? Frankly, he's so cool he doesn't wear socks. Now, and he's reading a book called Play to Win. And I think that these are not the things that attract an audience. These are not the things that make connection. So if you're looking at storytelling, if you're looking at attracting an audience, and you're thinking that all you need to do is just dress in this role and rent the Ferrari, you're really, it's not about the number of figures or the size of your bank account. So if this is how you're telling stories, you need to stop right now. Now, there's a wonderful book, and I'm not sure if you've read it, but I did, and I was quite taken by it, that Everything is Effed Up. And it's a book about hope. And frankly, hope is something we can all grab hold of, more so than the Ferraris and the watches, because everybody has hope, or should have hope, in their world. And this book, written by Mark Manson, actually also tells us that everybody's going to go through at least 5 or 6 traumatic events in our lifetime. So while we're all so busy telling stories of success and the nice watches and the fancy suits and the brag on our bank account, it's really these hiccups along life's journey and how you got in them and swam through them that folks are most connected to. And so knowing that most of us are going to have 5 or 6 traumatic events in our lifetime, how did you get through yours? That's a story. How did you go and come out the other side? That's a story. Who helped you through the process? That's a story. And it's those stories that connect with people, because remember, before they buy from you, they must first buy you. So what are they buying? What kind of stories can you tell me? How can I connect with you? And I really, really believe that our stories are really all about the crap you crawled through to get there and how we came out the other side. So in other words, how we are resilient. This happened before, I went through this, and here I am to talk about it. How about talking about your bounce back? Sometimes that bounce back doesn't happen as quickly as you hoped it would. I know that's a big one for me. And how about lessons learned? What did you learn in that process? What did you learn when you were down in those dumps? And those are the kinds of stories that people want to connect with. They resonate with your audience. It's not the bank account. So when we take a look at our stories, and I want to just point this out because I know I've showed this before, but I just think it's really quite remarkable. This was done by Dr. Paul Zak, and he is a master storyteller, and he also has put a whole series of MRIs, people going into an MRI. So they take pictures of your brain while you are on stories. And I think it's quite remarkable to see the neurology. In other words, how the brain fires up when we're being told stories. So clearly this imaging, this brain imaging, is a testament to what happens when your brain is on stories. So if we make it a little simpler, here's how that MRI actually translates. That if you look at the brain on the left-hand side, that if we're telling our audience about the facts, the figures, the benefits of whatever it is we're selling, there's only two spots in the brain that fire up. One is language processing and language comparison. However, when we put our brain on stories, we light up all of these parts of the brain. The emotions, the memories. Look how big the memories are. The visual images, the motor cortex, the smells. Stories engage us. And if they are emotional stories, not just, I bought a new watch, I got a great car, I don't wear socks and ain't I cool, but the stories about, I did this, I went through this, here's some things that I was feeling along the way. So it really is, we want to get into our buyer's brain through their heart, and their heart is through these emotional stories. So when we think about how we're going to put these stories together, we think a lot about, sometimes we think a lot about shame. And when we think about kind of where the first bit of shame actually came from, it's when our mom scolded us. And I know my mom scolded me quite a bit. And one of the stories she often told me about was, you always have to wear clean underwear because you never know when you're going to be in an accident. And the funny thing about that is, from my perspective, is I think if you were in an accident, number one, your underwear is the last thing you're going to be worried about. And number two, I suspect it won't matter if they're clean or not, because accidents have a way of working their magic on all of us. So there's kind of a bit of a shame game there that really has no foundation at all. So, you know, you're rigged up to feel bad. Oh, you know, my underwear is not clean, when in essence, you know, you need to be worrying more about yourself in the accident. So I think that what is interesting is how we feel shame. And I think a lot of times we feel shame because we, you know, as I showed here, we feel shame because we, you know, feel we've missed out on this normal train. And when in essence, there's not many people that actually ride the normal train. We've all got something in our lives that makes us abnormal, not normal. But hiding it or feeling shameful about it is really not how we want to proceed, because it is those stories that allow us to connect. So my story is about my brain tumor, one of my many stories. And as you can see, this little circle here, well, it's kind of a big circle. This is a picture of my brain in an MRI, and I had a brain tumor. So what are the chances? Well, the chances are 0.43% in 7.53 billion people. So I would have rather taken this chance and won the lottery, but instead I had what is called a benign or non-cancerous bone tumor that had to be removed. And so this was an interesting process for me to go through, because it's life-changing. As the book said, Mark Manson said, we each go through 5 or 6 traumatic events in our lifetime. And this pretty clearly was one of mine. I have others, but this is probably the one that tops the scale. So then when you think about having a brain tumor, and then you think about cancer, there's like a flood of, your life flashes before your face, and you just think, are my days numbered here? And then there's, of course, all of the things that can happen when you have brain surgery. And, you got to weigh the good with the bad. But what I was having were terrible headaches. And this tumor didn't just happen overnight. It happened over the course of many, many years, but it just kept getting bigger. So my surgery was scheduled, and I knew that they were going to have to do a cut from here over to here, and they're going to take my face and put it over my chin and get at this brain tumor that was right here. So I figured, well, I don't have a huge head of hair, so I'm just going to say screw the tumor. And I shaved my head and put lots of color in my hair, so that actually when the neurosurgeon came to attack me with a ruler and a felt pen the moment of my surgery, I scared the hell out of him when I took my cap off and he saw that I'd really colored up my head. He said, well, you're going to be easy to work with. So they really didn't have to shave my head because it was all shaved. But the color kind of certainly added a little bit to the process. But as foolish as I was and as crazy as I was about the process, I also spent a lot of time in the worry wart mode. And the thing about worry is it doesn't make any difference. So in terms of, what did I learn? I still practice worry, but not quite as much as I used to, because no matter how much you worry, it will not make a difference. It will not make a difference to the outcome. It won't make a difference. The only thing it makes a difference to is that you're just incredibly preoccupied and you're not enjoying the moment. So there is a thing about brain surgery, and the notion is that you ain't never the same once the air hits your brain. And I will confess that is, there are certainly some things that have changed in my life that will never go back. And the surgery and the recovery took certainly longer than I had imagined. But I will tell you that that the whole part about it is, well, I did feel a little bit loopy after the surgery, unquestionably, and the surgery took 5 hours. The drugs were wonderful, and there's always a good thing when you have these kinds of traumatic events happen in your life. But the idea here is that I didn't drool, I still don't drool, and I have all my buttons. So no matter how much you worry about something, those kinds of things, you can't change them. And optimistically, they had the surgery. The surgery was successful. Regrettably, I still have headaches, but I came through the other side, and I have a big story to tell, and it is part of who I am. And the other part that I think is quite funny is that this is a handsome picture. Is when all the bruising started to happen, and I went to the hospital with my makeup kit, and I'll tell you, there's no amount of makeup that could get rid of this little facial feature. And it took me a few months to get rid of these bruises, but it is remarkable how our bodies heal. And I learned that eyeshadow was not required. And what I think happens is that we all have these wounds, and we all feel kind of like we're embarrassed when we go through surgery. And we think that we shouldn't tell anybody about it. And the fact that I had 67 staples that went from this side to this side, and I always wore a hat because I was embarrassed about how I looked. When indeed, the wounds are part of our story and should not be part of our embarrassment, because we're warriors. To go through that and come out the other side, one is a warrior. And I think this is a wonderful image to talk about redemption and loss and fear and healing. When you come out and you are healed and you have new hope, new excitement about the future. And it's not, when you're different, it's not about being embarrassed, because being different is so much better than being better. So everybody has wounds. And when we cover them up, we lose our connection with each other because we're not talking a common language. So what I want to leave you with today is to think about how you are framing your story and what kinds of wounds can you talk about without throwing a pity party and without getting into the chaos of the narrative, but the stories about what you learned in the process, about being resilient, about your bounce back, because those are the stories that connect. And it is grabbing hold of the heart and not the brain. It's not about logic, it's about emotionally connecting with your audience. So, hope you got a little bit from this about grabbing stories with your audience and talking about some of your wounds without throwing yourself a pity party, because nobody wants to get connected to victimhood. This is all about experience and perhaps changing people's lives, perhaps letting somebody else's path to something you've already done, it's easier for them. So, I'm Darcy from Sticky Bee, and it's the place to be because I help you get them sticky, get them stuck, and get them to stay, like bees to honey. And it's all about getting noticed so that your audience has a target to throw their wallet out. So how are you telling your stories? If you're curious, put show me in the comments below. Take care, folks, and have a great day. Remember, stories trigger emotions and make us pay attention. And they move us to action. And it is that movement that you're after with your audience. Bye for now.